Okay, so I want to get into Clifton Strengths, and I have called it Strengths Finder. Apologies. I think it used to be called that, and now it's
Yes,
Clifton
yes, it
Strengths.
was recently changed, right?
Okay. Would you share for those of us who maybe that's brand new to us, what is Clifton Strengths, and then what makes it unique?
Absolutely. So I think what makes it unique is that this is, first of all, my teacher had told me that this is the only assessment of its kind that has the reliability that of the testing. It's the only one of its kind that can be taken, I think you said from age 14 until the day you pass, and the results will be similar, if not the same, within a few. And so no other research that's been done on these other assessments can claim the same amount of reliability there. So that's one big differentiator. Gallup has been performing research for over 50 years to make sure that these are accurate and applicable, right? And a lot of it was centered around workplace development, personal relationship development, overall health was a part of our training as well. And I think all those facets, this is just a system that works very well with all of those. And it also cooperates really well with things like the Enneagram, I think, because there's something to be said about getting a full picture of someone, right? And so CliftonStrengths is a research-based system that essentially capitalizes on people's strengths and the good things about people, right? It bundles their talents, things that they do naturally, things that fill their bucket, and it bunches them up into themes, right? And so these themes, these bunches are called strengths, and there's 34 of them. And so when you take the assessment, you can either take one where you get just the top 5, which is going to be the strengths that are going to be present in your everyday interactions. These are the things that you tend to be good at and that fill your bucket, right? And the top 10 are going to be things very similar to that. Maybe every couple of days you use these in interactions. Your middle amount of strengths that come in from your assessment are going to be what we call floor strengths.
Mm-hmm.
And those are strengths that they're always on the floor, and we can pick them up, dust them off, and use them, but we don't want to do them in our everyday line of work because that might drain us. Right. And so the very last ones aren't necessarily going to be weaknesses, which is an idea a lot of people have, but it's a myth. They are things that aren't going to fill that person's bucket. They're not weaknesses. They're things that aren't going to come natural as a reaction to any sort of situation. You're not going to see them using those tools, right? Those strengths in a situation because they are not comfortable with them. So they will never be, or almost never be, present in their daily interactions.
I like how you described the quote unquote weaknesses, just not doesn't come natural. Um, I know that there's 4 categories that these strengths can fall into. Can we just get a quick overview of each of those 4 categories? And maybe category is not the right word, but tell me what is the
Yeah,
right
they're
word.
actually
Okay.
called domains.
Domains. Okay.
They are domains, and the 4 are strategic thinking, relationship building, executing, and influencing.
Okay.
So when you get your results, it almost looks like a DNA helix, which I'm sure you saw with yours. And it has your top 10 and they're color coded. So you can kind of see visually where, you know, the majority of your strengths lie within those domains. So we like to say you're leading with, and in your case, you're leading with your relationship building, right? And I believe you're also leading with your strategic thinking. And
Okay.
so, yeah,
Yes.
those are the domains, as kind of how we bunch them, what family those strengths fall under. And so they fall under one of those 4 domains.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. If we can, and just out of curiosity, if you're willing, would you share with us your top strength?
Yeah, absolutely. My top strength is futuristic,
Okay.
which I
Okay.
believe you and I share. It's your second one.
It is. Yeah. So how do you see that showing up for you personally at work?
Well, like you, I really like motivating people. Right. And so I like the idea of influencing people and not to be manipulative, but to get them excited about the possibilities. And that is essentially what futuristic means,
Mm.
is there's a talent or a string of talents related to the fact that you're able to just have a way with words to describe what the possibilities are in the future. You can see far more possibilities of what things could be. And the idea here is it's in a positive manner. You can see the different possibilities, whereas other people might have a block seeing them. And so getting people excited for seeing what could happen. In terms of my own role in teaching, I want to get them excited in after you learn these, how are you going to apply them? How is this going to change your life essentially? How is this going to help your team?
Okay, so this is interesting, and I want to talk about this at the end a little bit more, but I feel like and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm misinterpreting the meaning, so you correct me, but the threes and the sevens and also the eights are kind of in that category on the Enneagram where they're future focused, kind of that fast, far, idealistic, kind of the same thing, wanting to motivate others. And so that's really interesting, kind of how that overlaps. Here, the Enneagram is overlapping with the CliftonStrengths. So, okay, I have developer as my first one. What does that mean?
Developer means that you get energy from finding and culminating talent within people who are not yet proficient, but whom you think that you can groom to be proficient in something. And so what fills your bucket is kind of getting them excited about themselves and kind of polishing up their skills and developing them much in the way that a mentor would. And so that didn't surprise me when I saw a few of them. I actually highlighted that on my little sticky here. I said, okay, so Sarah's a 7 and her top 5 are developer, futuristic, activator, positivity, and input. And then I highlighted developer, futuristic, and positivity. And I thought these are so in line, right, with her Enneagram 7, because as we know, our Enneagram 7 is really good at that influential factor. Much like threes, we have that in common, right? We like talking to people, we're energetic, we like helping people out. And I think that's where my 2 wing also comes. And I can see that you get pleasure from that as well, from finding people and talking to them and having that aha moment with them. And that's a lot of what that developer looks like for you.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I feel you so much on the like the possibilities, which is very 7, but also it's a 3 energy.
Definitely.
So it's like, oh my gosh, you could do so much. You could be on any podcast, you could write a book, you could, do this job. So that's really exciting, but it's interesting to note that like that's, not everybody gets excited about that. So
right. And that's a talent that you have. And instead of, that's a great thing about Clifton and Enneagram is now that you know that about your Enneagram core type, it's not something to, self-doubt. It's something that should be celebrated. That is a strength that you have. And now you know how rare that is. And so capitalizing on that is something you owe yourself. And what's great about Clifton is that we don't focus on weakness. We only focus on strength because it's been statistically proven that it's counterproductive to focus on weakness.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Gary Vee he's been talking a lot about that over the years. Like quit trying to get better at your weaknesses.
Exactly.
Would you be willing to share your top 5? I know you mentioned futuristic. I'm just curious.
Absolutely. Yeah. Futuristic is my number 1. My number 2 is strategic. My number 3 is learner. No surprise there.
Okay.
Right. My number 4 is activator. And my number 5 is achiever, which
oh my gosh,
the achiever, Enneagram 3. And so, right, that's another one of those things. You say workaholic, and I'm over here like, don't let my husband hear, because yes, I'm cheating on him with my work. I love working.
I feel that. Yeah. Was there any that surprised you when you got these back, or like I know you had mentioned you were like, oh, that's why I do it why I do what I do.
None of them did surprise me. And that's kind of what I like about coaching people, is that I ask them invariably every time, right? Did anything surprise you?
Oh,
The only
yeah.
thing that surprises people is if they misidentify what a strength really
Mm.
means, such as, for instance, you have input as your number 5. I've talked to people who might think, since the stereotypical, definition of input on the page is just collecting things, people tend to think of that in terms of, collecting products, collecting tangibles, whatnot. And really, it can also mean different things like collecting information, archiving ideas. And that could look like different things to different people.
I absolutely identify with that one because like books, I'm like a collector. I want to know about everything. It's some
Yeah.
type 5 energy a little bit, I guess. But yeah, that's really interesting. So I just out of curiosity, I think I want to just take a step back and go through like what does executing mean? Like if you're heavy in the executing domain, what does that mean?
Executing has to do with getting things done.
Okay.
It's the domain that has to do with the ability to get going, accomplish goals, stay kind of methodical, on task, focused, that sort of thing. So it's imperative to have on a team. It's definitely something worth looking into. And that's one of the things that we take a look at when we do team development workshops is we build a team grid, it's called, and we kind of overlay everybody's top 5 strengths, and maybe in some cases top 10. And we try to see where the commonalities lie. How heavy is the team in the executing? How heavy are they in the influencing, right? Which is, kind of what the 3 and 7s, have in common, which is the ability to motivate and influence others, and get them excited and energetic about a topic. And relationship building, of course, is going to be things that you think of a 2, right? When you think of your relationship building, or maybe a 9 on the Enneagram, when you think of your relationship building capabilities. And so you see that coming out in the warmth, in the relationship building strengths that people have. And the last one's going to be strategic thinking. And those are things like being strategic and thinking about pathways. Sorry, there's a thunderstorm going on. Good Lord. I apologize.
We've had thunderstorms on here before as well. Yes.
Gracious. Yes. So the idea behind strategic is kind of understanding, like, context is one of them. So the past and what the whole situation is. We talked about input. Input's one of them, which is the collecting and archiving of things or ideas with maybe not the intention of using them immediately, but the idea that they could be helpful in any situation later. It's like being a collector and an archiver, right? And 5s have that a lot too. You actually find a lot of the strategic and analytical in Enneagram 5s, which is interesting because those traits are reciprocal, right?
Absolutely. I'm looking at mine. It's like, wow, as far as like getting things done, I have 0 of my no top 5 in the executing.
Don't you go focusing on the negative.
Okay, I know. I was like, so what does that mean? Like, is that something to be concerned about, or?
No. And that's actually part of the coaching process that we're taught is to, a lot of people go to, okay, what's my bottom one?
Mm-hmm.
What's my, bottom 10, or I'm missing a lot here.
Mm-hmm.
There's even people who are in leadership positions who think having empathy is a bad thing to have it at the top. And people have all these preconceived notions of, the way things are structured in our society and, stereotypes and of that nature. But we're taught to just kind of have people discover about themselves and affirm times where they used their strengths to do the thing that they're worried about not having in that domain. So if you're worried about not having, what did you say, executing?
Yeah.
Then you take a look at your top 5 or your top 10 and you ask yourself, so how do I use these top 5 or how do I use these top 10 to get things done? Because that's what it boils down to, right? That executing is your ability to get things done, and you're very successful. And so obviously you've put executing in some capacity, right? It's subjective because it's you, it's uniquely you, but it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something to say, okay, so maybe I do it in a different way. Maybe I do it in my own, 7 brand, right? My own Sarah way of doing it. And so ask yourself how mainly use those top 5 strengths to get things done, to follow through with people, to communicate, to accomplish your tasks, accomplish your goals every day and long term.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, that's funny. Immediately I was like, gosh, I don't have any. I don't have any of my top 5 in there. What are we gonna do?
Oh,
um,
it's okay. That's totally normal.
so I want to ask, I know that you do one-on-one coaching, and then I know that you also use this, as you mentioned, in team environments. I would love to know, like from at an individual level, what type of insight or how could somebody use these results in their career, whether it's, I don't know, finding the right job or maybe, leaving a job because it doesn't align, or how do you see your clients mostly using this on an individual level?
So advice I'd give people who are maybe considering a career change, for example, would be take a look at your top 5. Think to yourself how they're being met. How are they being met in the workplace? Are you meeting your top 5? Because if you're not, when you ask yourself those self-reflective questions, you're going to realize which ones you're actually using every day and which ones you might not be using. And it's funny because when you get to thinking about it, those things tend to pop up in your personal life. Right. So for instance, I was talking to someone who thought that he didn't have influencing and he was in sales, and that might be concerning. And, similar to your situation, it's like, okay, well, what do you do? You know what I mean? To focus on it. And I think that really kind of taking ownership of it, adding it into your LinkedIn profile when people, are talking about what can you bring to the table? I think maybe sometimes in cover letters, I've seen people explain each of their 5 and how that shows up for them in their job.
What a great
And
idea.
if your bucket isn't being filled at work, you take a look and you see how it pops up. Now, with that person I was telling you about, restorative was on his top 5 and it wasn't being met at work. He no longer had the opportunity to do that problem solving. That's what restorative means in CliftonStrengths. And so it was popping up in the ability to play, strategic games outside of work. So in your personal life, it's like, you subconsciously want to have those, and your body kind of seeks those experiences. And if you're not getting them in the workplace, you might need to either look for opportunity, ask your upline for opportunity, seek it yourself to be a self-starter, maybe work on anything that you want to focus on and see where your bucket isn't being filled. And if it's not, then maybe considering a new career path that might fill those buckets for you, or at least ways that you can do something as a hobby to kind of get that satisfied and scratch your itch.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is that these strengths are kind of that whole like zone of genius
Right.
idea. And then
That's a good way to
also,
put it.
I've heard of this idea called like the zone of joy, where it's like you're good at it and you love it. I didn't really think about it like, oh my gosh, this is like kind of a need in addition to a strength. So like actively seeking those opportunities out. I also can see this being really helpful with because we have it's a kind of a mixed bag. We have people navigating a career, looking for satisfaction and success. And then we also have entrepreneurs looking to build offers and different marketing strategies, and just understanding, your strengths can also, I can see like being really eye-opening in how you stand out and what you might think is like a really crowded marketplace. It's like, well, I'm a health coach, but look at these 5 unique strengths that I'm bringing.
It's absolutely important in differentiating yourself, because even the statistics tell you that the chances of you having the same top 5 in the exact same order is 1 in 33 million. And so that alone should tell you how unique your own personal DNA of strengths is. And if you combine that with seeing the full picture of yourself through the Enneagram lens as well, you not only understand your core motivations and then through your wing, right, how that behavior manifests, but you can parlay those into, okay, what do I want in life, right? What's going to make me happy? Okay, so now you have the tools, and that's what Clifton is okay, let's put those tools in your toolbox and let's make it intentional. Let's really
Yeah.
put those to use. How can we work those in and, maneuver them in our own MacGyver way to get to the end game?
Yeah, so good. How do you see, and we've touched about on this just a little bit, but anything else you want to add, I would love to hear. It is so interesting that you work with both the Enneagram professionally and this, and then I know also DISC. How do you work, I guess, like how in your coaching or in your team workshops, are you bringing both of them together, or like how does that dynamic work? Because that would be just so much great insight, kind of just more well-rounded, but I'm just curious how they overlap or how you use both of them
Yeah,
together.
absolutely. It's interesting because typically people will approach training asking for solutions for team development, sometimes team rapport, and really it comes down to talking to them to see what the core need is. And if they don't know their team members, right, then finding out their Enneagram type is usually how I would start. And I do a 90-minute Enneagram for team efficiency and improved communication. So I do a session with them and I have them complete their assessment prior to coming in, but they don't know anything about it other than what the results typically say. But then once they come in, I kind of break down each type and talk about how their buckets are drained at work and how their buckets are filled at work and what you can do to support them. And then we have a conversation about how each type deals with conflict, how each type manifests its communication strategies. And then I think the best part of these is that, here's that aha moment, right? That aha moment of just finding out like, wow, I really did notice that so-and-so during that meeting does these things. Or I really thought when they sent that really straightforward email that was hurtful, but no, they're just an 8 or they're just a this. I heard so many people say things like that, and it was like having that aha moment of wow, like really getting to know people makes the idea a little bit more, I don't know, it solidifies the idea for you that there are unique perspectives, because it's easy just to say to someone, well, not everybody thinks like you. Well, okay, give me an example, right? Enneagram provides that framework for you. So getting to know each other on that basic level and then having that dialogue for me is really where you get some of those great aha moments and that self-awareness. And then we kind of turn it into validating each other's, confirming their strengths in a CliftonStrengths setting after we go through Enneagram.
Okay.
So we go through kind of an Enneagram first to get to know each other. And then as we need to kind of move forward in that team development and grow to a different stage and work together and trust each other, we now get specific about how each of us bring those top 5 strengths to the table. We talk in terms of team grids. I meet with managers first to talk about how their strengths manifest and how they've come to present themselves when they deal with their team members and how they manage their teams. And I think that working Enneagram into there helps them to cater their management style, much in the same way that Clifton does. With Clifton, we can aim it by helping the managers to realize what they're good at and ignore, like we said before, the domains that they're not strong at, and then ask the right questions. Okay, so if you're leading with developer, how can you use developer in the next 3 months, right? In the next 30, 60, 90 days, and use those SMART goal strategies and aim it towards something tangible. And so, Enneagram, I feel like, is a good basis that I recommend for getting to know teams. And then Clifton helps kick off kind of that we're getting to know each other more so, and we're validating each other's contributions, right, in a specific setting and giving them the context of that. And that in turn starts to develop that confidence in the other teammates, and also that vulnerability that I see them get during the Enneagram sessions as well, when they laugh and they say, yeah, that's my tendency. You're right. I don't add emojis to emails. That just isn't me. So you see those types of things, and having a good laugh and building that rapport is all part of the recipe in team development. So it all comes together. But I really do think that there's something to be said about using both in tandem.
Yeah. So obviously we have a lot of Enneagram enthusiasts listening to this podcast that might be ready for CliftonStrengths assessment. Where is a good place to start, or how do we get started with that process?
So you would just go to the Gallup website, and that is going to be gallup.com. And when you're in gallup.com, you can either redeem a code if you buy a book online at Amazon or some other place. I've done it that way a couple of years ago, and you would just get a hardcover copy of the book, and then in the back, you rip out a code, you go on here, you enter the code. Or you can go to the store, and it's under shop at the gallup.com website. And then you can either buy your top 5 strengths, and it's the same assessment if you want to reveal all 34 in order.
Okay.
So you can either it's the same exact assessment, but you can either get the results of your top 5 or all 34 in order. But if you get all 34 in order, you get an individualized, that's unique to you, and they've only been doing this for the past couple years, explanation of your top 5 and how they specifically come together for you. And that's based on research. So I think that that's just such a pearl. I mean, for me and for the people that I've coached.
Yeah. And then where do you come into the process?
And so I actually give out these access codes. If someone wants to go through me, I have a discount where I can get some money off either assessment for you. And then when you take it, you get the results, I get the results, and then you set up at your leisure a time to have a discovery call, I call it, with me for an hour where we kind of decode and talk through your strengths. And we set up a plan for you. And so you can either have the one session, or you can set up a different cadence of sessions with me. 3, 6 are common, and we can go through on a one-on-one basis and focus on the goals that you have, short and long term. And I work with you to capitalize on those strengths and to make them produce results for you.
Yeah, I think anytime if you have the opportunity and the resources to be able to, just having a guide kind of help you interpret those results can be so helpful. Whether it's the Enneagram, CliftonStrengths, so that I love that you do that, and like so helpful, and just kind of getting a personalized take on those results, and then also how to actually use them. So information and application. I have one kind of left field question before we get into some rapid fire questions here at the end. And I want to know how we can learn more about you and connect with you on social media. But I know also you had mentioned that you do some speaking on different women's topics. And one of those challenges, I guess, for women is that idea around confidence. So you had kind of mentioned confidence and how this can help. What other topics or how do you kind of help women with specific issues, challenges that we face using some of your expertise and experience in these tools?
Sure. I think that with women, a lot of the times we're afraid to speak up. I know that's not for every woman, but I know, speaking from my own experience and a lot of people that I know, finding my voice and kind of owning that has been essential in becoming assertive and putting my ideas out into the world. And so for me, a key tool in doing those things was the Enneagram and CliftonStrengths. And I think that more women need to get involved in things like this and really get to know themselves, because that, to me, is the piece that's missing. A major component of emotional intelligence, which, to answer your question, is a lot of what I offer, is this differential training in emotional intelligence, presentation training, and things of the like. I think that getting to know yourself is just the basic tenet of getting to recognize those feelings and manage those feelings in other people, in your teams, within your relationships at home and otherwise. So self-awareness is really the first step. And so I think that meeting women where they are and not expecting people to be like other people, because we are all unique. And I know that sounds like it's off the back of a Hallmark card, but we are all unique. And I think that when women realize their special brand of uniqueness and make that something that we can work with and use it, then we all of a sudden get this confidence that seemingly comes out of nowhere, but it empowers us. And it's that self-affirmation. It's having confidence, but I really do think that it is on more of an individual basis, because you need to get to know yourself and then, share and apply your strengths to goals that you have with a team, if that need be the case. But I really derive a lot of pleasure from this emotional intelligence type of talks with people, and weaving that into things like presentation skills, being professional, strategic thinking types of courses, and customer service courses, soft skills in business. I teach a business etiquette and business writing, virtual etiquette. And we talk about differing personality types and outlooks and things of that nature. And I've also created DEI trainings and have worked in and with and been in some seminars recently with some wonderful speakers having to do with inclusion in the workplace and what we're doing now to make sure everybody has a voice, but making sure that that voice is attributed to the person who said it. And being intentional about everyone's strengths, being aware of everyone on your team's strengths, because we don't want to be islands, right? And so getting to know ourselves, and then getting to know ourselves in the context of the teams that we work on.
Oh, I love it. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
Yeah, so many good applications and uses for, self-awareness and these tools, from communication, writing emails to to understanding our customers better. I absolutely love that. Not everybody has the same buying style.
Right.
So for anybody who is looking to learn more from you and or to work with you, where can we connect with you?
Sure. So you can connect with me on my LinkedIn. My name on there is Melissa, Melissa Damon. That's my maiden name, Damon, and my last name, Moore, Moore. And I can also be reached at my coaching and consultant website, which is IamMissyMoore.com. And I also do some fashion blogging on the side. So you can find me on Instagram, where I share positivity and fashion and real life and things of that nature on @PopOfStyle.